one of the ways outside of just motion that like I've always thought about creative fatigue is a two-step process. The first thing that we're doing is we're scanning through the environment to understand our positioning in the environment. And then once we understand that, we move to the second step, which is then related to your own specific ad. So let's start with number one being the environment first. So if I'm like an e-com brand or whatever it might be, right? Something in the metrics that I might compare is my bottom line metric. So CPA, ROAS, CPL, whatever it might be, and then compare that to my CPMs. I'm looking for the relationship at that point. What I want to see is like, hey, if my return on ad spend is low and every single time it's low, the CPM is high, I might not actually have an ad fatigue problem. Like it's just like expensive in the market right now. People are pushing it, or I might need to spend more money along those lines. But if I see that my return on ad spend is low and the CPM is low, I know something else is going on here. And then it's worth jumping into that second step of what's going on with my ads. Once I move to that second step of trying to figure out like what's going on in my ads, that's where I might start to compare different metrics. I think intuitively we all want to look at that bottom line of ROAS, CPL, CPA, all that kind of stuff. But something that I've grown accustomed to comparing is actually looking at my outbound CTR, so specifically who's going to the dedicated pages that I want them to, and then comparing that to my conversion rates. Because what I'm looking for is the volume of people who have clicked who's actually bought. Because what we know is, and at Motion, I think a lot of people will notice this too, is that CTRs are pretty consistent over time. Like they won't drop off of a cliff. Like people typically click, but where they'll really start to drop off is on the purchase side of things. So what I'm looking for is when I bring it to the ad, the obvious would be my CTRs fall like through the floor, and it's like, oh shit, I got to fix this. But more likely, what I'm going to see is a consistent like CTR across the board, but my conversion rate starts to die. And if I see my conversion rate starting to die, I know that my ad isn't really resonating with this colder audience anymore. I may be driving people, but the value prop is probably all off, and I might just be clickbaity to this particular group. So by breaking down those metrics, it starts to allow me to understand what's going on in the environment and what changes am I looking for, then bringing it to the ad of like, where should I be actually making a change? And to bring it back to Paul's initial question of how motion comes into play, is we have a bunch of visualizations and charts to make this really easy to see within seconds, essentially.